Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. Today we've got something really fascinating to dive into. We're looking at this esoteric text by an author named Zhu Feng, translated by Qin Yo, and it's called The Nature of Celestial Beings. We're going to be exploring what this text claims is a literal shortcut to ultimate self-improvement and evolution. So let's unpack this together.
So let me ask you a question. Is there a shortcut? Is it actually possible to just bypass centuries of grueling spiritual struggle to completely change who and what we fundamentally are? Can we cheat the system of our own existence? Well, the source material we're looking at today claims that, yeah, there absolutely is a way. But to actually understand this shortcut, we first have to understand the fundamental architecture of reality, at least according to this text.
Okay, let's dive right in. Section 1. Structure defines your nature.
Now, before we get to this cosmic shortcut, we gotta lay out the ground rules. Xu Feng's core thesis is right here. Nature is the characteristics of all structures. Basically, he argues that absolutely every entity in existence, whether it's a rock, a tree, a human being, or a god, has a nature that is defined entirely by how it's built. You just cannot separate what a thing is from how it's structured. And notice how this scales up from the mystical all the way to the strictly scientific. Gods have a divine structure, right? So that yields a divine nature. Water has a watery structure, creating its watery nature. The author even points to the 118 chemical elements of the periodic table and the over 500 medicines in the compendium of Materia Medica to prove this point. Chemical structures yield medicinal properties. It all boils down to this. If you want to change the nature of a thing, you absolutely must change its underlying structure.
So how does this apply to us and human evolution? Well, if we want to level up from a human to a celestial being, we have to change our structure. Now look at physical surgery. We can alter visible, tangible traits like our genes. But then we have what the author calls the life structure, spelled in all caps. This structure is totally non-material and invisible. You can't exactly take a scalpel to it, you know? The only way to alter an invisible life structure is to perform surgery on consciousness itself.
But man, here is the massive roadblock. Transforming consciousness the traditional way takes centuries of self-refinement. Why? Because your consciousness isn't just sitting up in your head. According to the text, it penetrates your blood cells, your bone marrow, time and space, the information retention space, and literally your entire life trajectory. It is so deeply baked into everything that trying to change it by sheer force of will is agonizingly slow.
Which brings us to Section 2, the celestial shortcut.
Because what if you didn't have to spend hundreds of years painfully untangling your mind from your bone marrow? Notice the huge contrast here. The old way is exhausting. We're talking centuries of meditation, reciting heavy scriptures, swallowing immortality pills, and endless praying. But the shortcut? Just act like one. The text claims that even a totally illiterate person who simply follows the celestial nature, just acting it out continuously, can bypass all that meditation and hit celestial status. It's essentially faking it till you make it, but on a cosmic scale.
But hold on, before we start acting celestial, we kind of need to know what we're aiming for here on this evolutionary ladder. The author gives us a really fascinating taxonomy. Humans are broken down into 5 types, going from ignorant commoners all the way up to sages and saints. And celestials are also divided into 5 types, ranging from ghost celestials up to super celestials.
But we are zeroing in on one very specific target for our shortcut, the 1,000-year world celestials. Why that one? Because Xu Feng states this is practically the easiest, most accessible state for human beings to reach after death. So that's our goal.
All right, Section 3. 8 celestial traits.
So how exactly do we pull off this shortcut? The foundational concept here is Wu Wei. It loosely translates to never doing anything, yet all things happen through them because they follow the Tao. It's an effortless, flowing, completely frictionless way to exist. They don't force reality to do what they want, they just let reality flow right through them.
Building on that effortless flow, here are a few more of the required traits. Celestials follow what is predestined, meaning they leave things to fate and stay totally open. They conduct themselves limitlessly and flexibly. And here's a wild one. The text says they are amorous, but they attach absolutely no importance to affection. Plus, they always maintain an elegant, cheerful, and humorous demeanor. Notice how totally free and unfettered this sounds? It's a beautifully detached approach to life.
Now this next trait might feel completely counterintuitive to us. They feel no mercy or pity, but are natural and unrestrained. Wait, no mercy or pity? Think about it.
Mercy and pity actually require you to be heavily attached to human emotional drama and suffering. Celestials, by definition in this text, operate way above that kind of friction. They're completely untethered from those heavy human weights. Which logically leads right into our next quote. They neither contend nor argue, but associate with other celestials. True celestials just exist in harmony. They completely avoid the exhausting, endless friction of mortal arguments. So if you want to use the shortcut, you have to stop arguing, stop forcing outcomes, and just maintain that cheerful, detached flow.
Which brings us to Section 4, the impossible catch.
Sounds incredibly liberating, right? Just chill out, detach, be cheerful, follow the flow, and boom, cosmic evolution. Well, here is Xu massive bombshell. The author abruptly switches gears and bluntly tells us humans can never achieve these 8 characteristics, not even one of them. You might have a brief, fading flash of it, like maybe you feel super deeply peaceful for an hour on a Sunday, but as a constant, permanent state of being, it's totally impossible for a human.
The author challenges the viewer directly with this intensely visceral hypothetical. Remember that trait about being open and unfettered? Well, could you maintain that if you were locked in a cell, literally eating grass roots, with everyone scolding you, and completely surrounded by rampant snakes and scorpions? Of course not. Your human structure would completely panic. And here's a second, even deeper emotional gut punch. What if you knew you were about to die in the very next second? Could you possess nothing? Would you truly have zero worries for the loved ones you're leaving behind? Zero fear, zero regrets? The text argues that a human simply cannot turn those attachments off. It is structurally impossible for us to be completely free of human bonds.
So this amazing cosmic shortcut turns out to be an impossible paradox for the average person. The blunt truth of Shui Feng's philosophy is this: only those who are already born with celestial roots can actually follow the celestial nature and become celestial beings. You just cannot cheat your invisible structural nature. The structure you're born with completely dictates the capabilities you have.
Which leaves us with the author's highly practical, kind of funny, but deeply profound final takeaway. A leopard cannot change its spots, so just be an honest person. It's such a fascinating conclusion. The text walks us through the ultimate cosmic hack, only to remind us of the immense value of just accepting our own human nature. If your structure is human, maybe the most enlightened thing you can do isn't trying to magically become a celestial, but simply striving to be a good, honest human being. It really makes you wonder, how much of our daily struggle and exhaustion is just us fighting against our own fundamental structure? Think about that. Thanks for exploring this with me today, and keep questioning the structures around you.